Men nu ska vi åka till Norge eftersom Torbjørn Amundsen is a partner in KPMG Law Attorneys at Law and authorized as legal advisor by the Norwegian Attorney Supervisory Board. And currently he is responsible for KPMG's foreign business services. And he is here to talk a little bit more about that, how to do business in the great area of Norway, which is a huge opportunity for, especially for us Finns. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Torbjørn Amundsen.
Okay, so the music, for those who didn't recognize it, was "The Future's So Bright, I Gotta Wear Shades." I forgot mine at home, so... but still, it's nice so many could be here. My name is Torbjørn. I'm going to take you through this in 30 minutes. It's a full-day seminar, so it's going to be on in-breath and out-breath. Please stop me if you have any questions, or we can talk afterwards. Norway, the agenda. A small introduction. Some of you have done these studies before. I'm going to spend much of the time talking about the business culture, authorities, some particulars about joint liability, which is only for certain industries, but I thought I'd mention it because it demonstrates some of the mentality in Norway, and a little bit about negotiations and cooperation. Now, please appreciate, these are keynotes, these are highlights. There are much details here. We cannot cover it all today. So, the Norwegian market is not in crisis. Yesterday I spoke to some of the people during the afternoon session, the socializing part, and how are you doing now with the oil crisis, etc. There's no crisis in Norway. We have a lot of money in the bank, and we spend all that money in order to avoid all the crises. So we have a huge public sector, and we use that to stabilize the situation. The worst is behind us. We are investing heavily in hospitals, schools, kindergartens, housing for the elderly, generation housing, and infrastructure. The roads in Norway is, in fact, for those who doesn't know, is the test laboratory for all the manufacturers of cars in the world. If your car can manage the tour on an average road in Norway, then it's good enough for anything else. Even though that's flattering as that might be, we'd like to invest some, and we are going to invest approximately 1,000 billion NOK in the next 10 years. And this is a spin-off. This is not only for the companies who actually drill the tunnels or build the bridge. It's also for the ones who design new innovative BIM technology or 3D programs that can contribute to a better way of managing the projects. This National Transport Plan, for those who doesn't know, is a 12-year plan. It's the third one we have. We tend to overcompensate. So when they say that we think we're going to spend 120 billion NOK, we are going to spend more, not less. That's the prediction. So not only for builders, but for companies that delivers to builders or delivers to these industries, there's a lot of opportunities. These are some figures from the infrastructure plan. I'm not going to recite them. You can read them yourself afterwards. What's interesting is, of course, that here, let's see. I have to point this. This is a very complicated thing. Does it work? No. You see the black one over here. Nye offentlige bygg, new public buildings. The black one shows that from 2015, you can see, 2015, all those graphs was more or less the same. And from 2015, when the shit hit the fan with the oil prices, the investment in public buildings went up. This is how they're doing it, and it's going steep up now, you can see, and the predictions for the future are even steeper. So the market for building is growing, and the spin-off is tremendous for other businesses. Yeah, the public builders. As I mentioned, we have a few companies which are owned by the state that runs these big projects, and they are very important. And at least two of them, the first on the top and on the bottom, Nye Veier and Sykehusbygg, they are new companies that are being tasked by building the biggest road projects and the new hospitals. And they are going to do this in a way that hasn't been done before. The task is to increase efficiency, to reduce cost, and to improve quality and reduce time. So innovation is welcome. Anything is welcome here. And I suggest for those of you who have ideas that can be utilized in these sectors, that you actually follow their homepages, because they have conferences, suppliers conferences, and they are very keen to meet people with new ideas. The others, like Oslo Municipality, for instance, are buying for 26 billion NOK per year, so it's the second largest purchaser in Norway, except from the state. And what they have in common is that they now are focusing less and less on price. Instead, they are focusing on quality, delivery, that they have involvement, that they get the best out of the project. Historically, price was everything. Now price is being less and less important. This opens also for new solutions, because, for instance, now they are starting to use the best value procurement. Anybody know that? Best value procurement? BVP. Check it out. It's very fascinating. 6 pages is your quotation. Your quotation is 6 pages. That's all you need to deliver in order to be qualified for the rest of the tender. And then they go into dialogue with 3 or 4, and they exchange ideas, and they select one, and the others are being paid out for their efforts. Not in full, but they are being paid, compensated for the time they spent, but they didn't win this time. So innovative models of purchasing is now taking over in the public sector in Norway, and this is very important news. There are a lot of sources. I have listed them here. For Finnish companies, I would say that if you are a small IT company with innovative ideas, maybe it's not the best idea to go directly to one of the large actors in Norway. Maybe you should team up with a strategic partner in Finland. There are different strategies that you can find here, and I've discussed several of them with the people who have a lot of experience, I understand, much more experience than me. But if we're then looking at the consumers, we don't pay any interest on our loans, and we have the highest salaries in the world. We have a good financial situation, we are very optimistic, and we tend to be very happy to buy things on the internet. We are among the best in the world in that segment, and growing. Our business culture, our common Nordic business culture, that's the first topic that I'm going to talk about. That is that we all come from a highly regulated society, and we trust each other. Politically, I may disagree with my government, but I don't think they're bandits. They're not gangsters. They're idiots, but not gangsters. So the level of trust between us and our government is very high. We have egalitarian societies, meaning that the differences between high and low in the society is not that big. Most of us, both in Norway, Denmark, Sweden and Finland, are considered to be prepared and precise, but we have some differences, and I'm going to talk a little bit about them. These differences, we have used a cultural interpreter to help us identify. I work with almost only foreign companies. So in my department, we have 40 people, we have 22 languages. We need those languages because we need the cultural understanding. When we are working with a Spanish company, I cannot use a German as the team leader. It's not going to work. I have to use somebody who understands the way the mind of the Spanish contact person works. Otherwise, all the work we do is for nothing. So, what we did, we conducted a research amongst our clients, saying, how is it to work with Norwegians? So we asked the foreign companies, how is it to work with us and the other partners you have in Norway? So these are their answers. They are not the Norwegian view on the Norwegians, it's the foreigners' view on us that I'm going to present to you. First, this is a highly scientific model, which is very well known, and where a professor in the Netherlands have spent, I'm sure, the better part of his life to find out everything about this. There are aspects here regarding power, individualism, masculinity, the tendency to avoid insecurity, and if you're long-term or short-term oriented. I'm not going to spend much time on it, but if you can, say, for instance, say that here we are thinking long-term in Spain, 19. So if you're doing business with a guy from Spain, it's what can you do for me today? Here is China, 118. They're planning for the next generation. They're not going to be making profit now. They are going to be making profit in Norway in 2030. Until then, they are gaining experience. This is very interesting. I took it, I'm not going to make any further comments because there are several slides in here. I advise you to look at it because it really triggers, if you start working on this, you can really get your mind going about how should I approach a guy who has the individualism of 15 and the long-term orientation of 118. So he's very collective and they're thinking next generation. Quick wins is not going to do it, right? So that's the only example I will do at this time. But there are some inputs to understand the analysis that I just included for your references here. And there's even a link there. What we're going to talk about is the fact, are there any Swedes here? Swedes? Don't be embarrassed. You can tell it to me. No Swedes, okay? What we're going to talk about is the fact that the Swedes think they won 22 gold medals in the Olympics because they won a hockey game. They did not. They won one. But this guy has won more medals of gold for Norway than these guys. You know who it is? Yes? When he's not driving drunk, he's quite good at skiing. The combination is not that good. The point is that when we take this to Norwegian management, anybody knows who this is? He's from Sweden. Come on, come on. Huh? Yeah, you know. I did not. This is a guy, Wallenberg. Anybody knows? The owner of SE Bank and whatever, you know. Do you know what their motto is? Att verka utan att synas. Do you think that's the motto of this guy? Do you know who it is? It's the single largest hotel investor in the Nordic countries. Petter Stordalen. He has more than 20,000 people working for him. I don't know how many hotels there. He opens hotels every week. He don't always dress like this, but you can see there is a different. If he hadn't been so pale, you wouldn't see him, right? For the background. This guy is the managing director of Hent, which is a construction company in Norway. They have 650 to 700 employees, something. They're owned by Ratos. It's one of the most successful construction companies in Norway with the highest profit per year, almost every year for the past 10 years. He knows the first name of almost everybody in the company, and he has never worn a suit in his life. He was going to a contract with Kjell Inge Røkke, which is a very famous Norwegian billionaire, for a very, very huge contract of 1.2 billion NOK. And he was thrown out of the reception because they thought he was a beggar. So he had to call and say, guys, you gotta pick me up. I'm going to, they're refusing to take me in there. So, informal and not so very informality is, I think, the key word I'm looking for here. We don't confirm the confirmation. Tero here, he sends to me, Torbjørn, it will be nice to see you, so I'll see you on the airport tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Which is according to what we have agreed. So I will not answer, because it's as expected. So, but then he will, Torbjørn, did you receive my last email? Oh, come on. We agreed to this. I have no options. I have no objections, Lack of email discipline. English is work, and Norway, Swedish, Danish is better. We CC everybody and his dog. If you receive an email from a Norwegian, check out who's in the CC. That will tell you how serious the problem is. If the managing director is on CC, you are in deep shit. Introduction. My name is Torbjørn. Mr. Amundsen is my granddad. Okay? If you don't understand what I'm saying, please ask. That's okay. I will repeat myself, and I will try to explain it in a better way. Don't sit there like a mummy and nod, and there's nobody home, and you don't know what I'm talking about, and it's really not working for you. We communicate rather directly and with not so many pleasantries. I spoke to one of the guys who had a speed dating session here just before I came in here. He's from Finland, but he's been working in Norway for many years. Very interesting. He said, it's good that we have only a half an hour meeting, because then I don't need to hear about all your ski trips. Which is very common in Norway. And by the way, don't call us after 12 on a Friday. I should already be on my way to my cabin. Okay? So we enjoy well-organized structures, reliable, effective, common. We don't like inflexible, stiff, slow, demanding, stressed. We don't like people who are too polite. If you are too polite, we don't like you. And we really don't want to make business with you, because it's against the Norwegian way of thinking relationship. Business is not war. Business is cooperation for a common good. I'm going to demonstrate that a little bit later. So if we are friends, we will not handshake more than the first time. We will high five. We'll say, good to meet you. I'll give you a hug, if I've shaved. So the informality is on the one side, but it's also a kind of trying to establish a relationship, a friendship, saying that we will work together on this. We will not dispute over the nitty-gritty details in the contract that might never happen. We will discuss the cooperation. And this is, many foreign companies, they burn themselves on this because they focus on the wrong thing. The level of trust in Norway is way above 90. The level of trust in Russia is 10. Okay? The level of trust in Russia is so low that 2 Russian contractors working together are protected by British law under forced negotiations in London. They don't even trust their own courts. These things are important. So I did a little comparison from open sources, and we see that authority follows function. This means In Finland, that you probably know, it's the managing director that, at least in theory, makes the decision, that make the final approval, whatever. In Norway, that can be the warehouse manager, the production manager, the project manager. It depends. The person that owns the problem owns the solution. So we have bosses all over the place. So it's almost anarchy. As a partner in KPMG in Finland, I would say, this is how I'm thinking, this is how we're going to do it, and you will do fine, quito. If I do that in Norway, I'll 10 questions. Oh, would it be better? Couldn't we do it? Couldn't we do it a little bit different? Unless I'm able to convince everybody. But the Swedes, they will discuss for 14 days after the completion of the negotiation, before they can agree to sign the agreement. But then I will ask as a Norwegian, because I was at the negotiations, why did I talk to you? If the whole manager group must agree, why didn't I talk to them? If you are at the table, you have the power to decide. You can study this a little bit closer if you like, but there are some important points like this one. As I said, business is cooperation, not war. Our authorities, they prefer substance over form. The Americans, they would say, cut through the crap. Okay? So you have a formal document, somebody calls it a contract or an agreement, and you have what people have done. So, let's say that you're going to Norway and you know that if I have a subcontract for this project, I will get into some tax issues. I don't want to have the tax issues. So instead, I second my people, hire them out, or I find some creative solution to avoid the tax issue related to the subcontract. When the authorities come along, they say, oh yes, so this is your contract. But you're not doing it, are you? So the contract is aside, and we go for the substance. That's what it means. According to both Norwegian tax law, VAT law, and contract law, the contract is a good starting point. But it's the analysis of how the parties actually acted that does the trick. So if you are in a dispute over a contract, and you know that we had the contract, and then we did something else, and then suddenly that went wrong, so now I'm back to the contract, and you are responsible, in court you might as well lose. Because the court will analyze, what did you do? The authorities are fragmented in their approach. If you call the tax authorities, you get a reply regarding tax, but not VAT or customs. And you can go on from there. Some of you have this experience, and you will know that I'm speaking the truth. You call the Central Office for Foreign Tax Affairs and ask them about international tax, you get the answer. They don't inform you about the VAT obligation. This next one, authorities are known to be rather zealous. Anybody know what zealous is? Anybody? It means very eager beaver in their service. Okay? This is not something that I've said. It's from the presentation that you can pick up from the Danish embassy's presentation of Norwegian business in Norway. What the Danish foreign ministry, represented by the embassy, is saying, they are saying, don't think for a minute that you are in Denmark. Don't think for a minute that the Norwegian authorities are civilized and that you can talk some sense into them. They are not. It's from the embassy. That means we have just 100 years of bureaucratic tradition, so we are not used to that. And we have also a fiscal approach. So if you have a clever idea and the tax authorities see that this clever idea, it saves you a lot of money in tax, you can be sure that you will be challenged. Even though the law might give you the right, they will try to challenge you anyway. 2 years back, this is a joke, it's also true, almost. 2 years back, the Norwegian tax authorities were voted the second most aggressive in the world. So they immediately sat down a project to find out how to regain the first prize. That's how they are working. I'm sorry to say, but that's how they are working. This is true. The working conditions, when you're working with us, we are social democrats, so we protect the worker, and we don't like people who work 60 hours, at least if it's dangerous work. We leave early on Fridays. This is from the Swedish embassy's homepage, by the way. Don't call a Norwegian after 12. He'll be very annoyed. But if you meet a Norwegian on a Monday, tell him or ask him, how was your weekend? If you meet him on a Thursday, what are you going to do during the weekend? And all ice is broken. Let him talk about the ski trips and the cabin for 10 minutes and show you some pictures, and we are on the game. This has to do with working conditions and focus. Anybody know who this is? This is Jens Stoltenberg. It's a very bad picture. He's now the Secretary General for NATO, but he used to be our Prime Minister for 8 years. So they had a huge problem. This was in 2010. Politically, they were in deep shit in 2010, and the polls were going down, and you know. And then something happened, and the Labour Party was the biggest party again, and it was a big success. And he's so happy, huh? He's so happy. But this is Norway's biggest newspaper for business. And there's a lady who worked on some temporary contracts, and when she applied for a fixed position, she was fired. Big success for the biggest party, lady mistreated by the employer. Can you see the... You get the message? Okay. That brings us to joint liability. And this is, in particular, this is industry. And I think maybe I even have to stop after that because I only have 3 minutes left. So I'll say quickly that within certain industries, like building and construction, or if you are in public contracts, this story is so good I have to post it on the internet afterwards, but I don't have the time to tell it. You might be in a situation, if you are paying your workers not enough according to the tariff agreements, your customer in Norway might have to pay it for you. Okay? And in industry, building and construction, public contracts, this is an issue. So this means that if you're sitting down talking to Skanska in Norway, they will be very concerned about how your workers live and what the pays are. And if you are not unaware of the background, some of your answers might trigger some real concerns on Skanska's the side of the table. So the reputational risks will end it there. This is Petter. And if I work for Choice Hotels in Norway, I work for Petter. We identify ourselves with our companies. We know everybody. If you tell me that you have been, I will ask you, yes, you have the ISO certificate, this and that, and I will ask you, do you have any references? And you will give me a reference to a previous project. The minute you're out the door, I'll call it because I have connections. I will check out your references. If your references are okay, I don't care about the ISO certificate. Your reference is okay, much, much, much more important. So we see within the industry, for instance, they're calling each other to check out, yeah, that's a good company, I recommend them to you also, you should use them, they're fine. So they're not protecting themselves and their own subcontractors, they want to share them because they want you to grow, because then they can use you again. And you only get better the more experience you get. Bad publicity is worse than financial loss, and that's the truth. You saw that on the front page with the lady that was mistreated. In the rest of this is illustrations of how important it is. people are living here or used to live there until it burned down. 7 died. These are just a fraction of the examples of bad publicity that foreign companies have triggered. And you can be rest assured, none of those foreign companies are in Norway anymore. One like this in the press, and you're out. The negotiations as the final one, because this is a presentation from the Public Road Authority for 22 pre-qualified tenderers for the single biggest infrastructure project in Norwegian history. They pulled this slide up and they said, who will we be as your customer? We will be transparent, predictable, we will expect no surprises, we will give you no surprises, we need to talk, you will call me before you mail me, you will mail me before you write me a letter, and you will write a letter before I get a call from your attorney. And if you are successful, then we are successful. And this is from the Public Road Authority. They emphasized this for this huge project. We need to work together. So in total, figure out how these negotiations must be. I have just listed them here. What would your strategy be for the market? Based on that, what we have been talking about now. And I wish you the best of luck. I think that's it for now. I've spent 2 minutes too much.
Thank you.
Thank you.